Imagine taking an 8-hour horse ride to get away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life and civilization, getting to your forested corner of the universe, believing that you are the only people on the planet, only to find out that not only are you not alone, you're surrounded by beings that you never thought existed. I'm Matt Emsh, yeah, the Youngstown Dogman guy, and have I got an interview for you today.
I first saw Bigfoot 40 years ago, and I've been looking for it ever since.
We have Ron Morehead, the OG, the most well-known person connected to Sasquatch sounds on the planet. He did the Sierra sounds, and we have him here. And I'm proud to have an interview with him. So we're going to bring on Mr. Morehead right now. Hello, Mr. Morehead, sir.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for that introduction. Yeah, that was nice.
Absolutely. Thank you. I wanted to tell you again, thank you for coming and doing the interview. It's an honor to have you on. You are a hot commodity to get in interviews, and oh, you are, and I'm proud to call you friend. I met you a little over a year ago at a conference, and I met you and your wife, and I'm very proud that I call you friend. So it's
Well,
an
thank you.
honor again to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's nice.
Jumping right into this, I wanted to let my listeners who maybe don't know about you, can you jump into who you are and where you're from, just the beginning basics?
Yeah. Sure. I'm Ron Morehead. But yeah, I became known basically for the Sierra sounds over the last 50 years or so. Giant beings that we recorded up in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California back in the early 70s. And anyway, we had them studied via Alan Berry, who was an investigative reporter we took into camp. It's about 8 miles in the wilderness, and it's about 8,400 feet in elevation. Very inaccessible, very imposing trip to get there. But once you get there, it's really nice. I don't go around trying to prove the existence. The facts that I have will tell everybody what they want to know, unless they've got their mind closed. They'll understand. And that's all I do now is talk about what it means to me and where it goes and what the evidence shows and but it led me into the ethereal part of human component. That's our spiritual part, and that's our soul, our consciousness. Because these things, talk to you a minute about how I came to think and not to think, but I'm sure they have to have a human component to them. So that made me get into what we are as humans and what they could be. And why are they here? Why are we here? Why is all this stuff coming about us so much? A lot of people are seeing this anomaly, they're seeing strange things. And I never could answer the strange things back in the 70s that was happening at our camp. None of us could. And Al Berry even said, don't talk about those things. He was an academic, he had a master's degree in science, and he said, just put it on the shelf. We don't know what it is, because you see lights, you hear sounds that don't make sense. I don't mean vocalizations, I mean metallic sounds or things that you can't put a finger on. Anyway, that's who I'm responsible for all that stuff. Not responsible for bringing it out in the public, I guess. And it's anyway. It's been a fun journey, and I'm in my 80s now, and I just appreciate doing broadcasts like you're having right now. It gets the word out, which I think is extremely important to humanity right now. We're on the edge of cuff of something that's very, very unique and very, very important, I think. And the Bigfoot phenomenon, to me, brought me to this idealistic idea that I have, and how important we are as humans, and what's trying to happen, and what we're supposed to do about it, and things like that. And so I get into all that, and we can talk about more than that, but I'm probably getting ahead of you now. If you got questions, just
That's
shoot them out.
fine. No. That was wonderful. I and coming from someone that has had an experience with a different beast altogether, I agree with you wholeheartedly that it is extremely important for people that have had real experiences to get out there and talk about it, because there's a lot of them that have experiences that are very afraid. That old adage and mindset that, thank God, is starting to change about, keep your mouth shut, don't talk about it, everybody's going to call you crazy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
starting to
yeah.
change, and it's because of people like you, and I've been told, because I, opened up and spoke about mine. So, Mr. Moorhead, if we could back up there, what I wanted to do for our listeners is just to let them know, the area that you went to when this all came down, why you were going out there, how long it took you to get there. So, from first day, what was going on?
Well, the first day was the summer of '71 when the Johnson brothers, who have been frequenting the camp as a hunting camp since 1958, they made a trip up just to see how things were. So it's such a nice place once you get there. It's hard to get there, but once you get there, it's you just want to lay back on a rock, enjoy things, listen to the stream. Anyway, they had an encounter. Something came into the camp that night and disturbed them. They thought at first, well, what kind of a bear is out there? Then they heard the vocalizations, which was not a bear, and they had to. They didn't go out because they was going to go out and run it off, but they decided they better not. Anyway, they went out later after all the commotion stopped, and they seen this huge track, 5-toe track in the mud next to the old stove they had up there, and they think that one of them got burnt on the stove. Uh, they're not sure what happened, but they was really making a ruckus the first night, and the guys came out and told the other hunters, which there was five of them altogether. I made this the sixth, and they told the story about there is some kind of a monster up there. We don't know what it is, but it's huge, and they fight among themselves, and they're really something's going on. All the guys wanted to find out what it was, and so they all went back up, and one of the guys heard it that night, and he just got scared off. He wouldn't go back. He left him a note, and he said he was out as soon as the sun came up. He was gone, and he left him a note saying, "I'm out of here, guys." He was very religious. He was all kind of spiritual. We're all spiritual anyway, if we like it or not. We
Mhm.
are. But it was all religious guys at the time, and they just couldn't put a handle on that because the Nephilim, the giants in the old Bible, and different tales that are not supposed to exist nowadays anywhere. But something up there was like that, and it was existing, and it was right there in flesh and blood, messing with them. So he wouldn't go back up until the wives finally told him, "You got to go back up." The guys were late coming out, and he wanted to. He they wanted to find out if the guys had been eating or what was going on because they all knew the story then. The wives did.
Mhm.
He wouldn't go back by himself. He said, "I was friends with them all, but I hadn't been a hunter up until then." So he took me up there with him, basically just about killed me getting up that mountain, getting
How
in
long
and
did
out
it
of
take
those
you to get
crevices and
there,
stuff.
sir?
But with him, I don't know, probably 4 hours, maybe three, four probably, because if you're in good shape, it takes you five. But I
Mhm.
was trying to keep up with him. He like a mule already, he just goes. But they had taken horses in. That's how they brought the supplies in, and mostly, and had some barrels up there in a stove that had been reassembled so they could use it. Things like that. Set up a really nice camp. I mean, Johnson Brothers had set up for the Armageddon up there, ready for something else, the deluge or something. I don't know. Anyway, that got me involved with them. I came out in that winter of '71. I got a horse. Well, I had several horses, but I got a gun, started shooting, got my uh, cowboy hat, got everything. I was ready to go as soon as we could. I started going more and more that year, though, same year, '71, when I could get someone to go with me. But I found my way in and out pretty well, and started going as often as I could. It was 1972 when Alan Berry wrote that letter to Ivan Sanders. Excuse me, not Alan. Warren Johnson wrote the letter to Ivan Sanderson, who in turn turned it over to Peter Byrne, who in turn got a hold of Alan Berry to come and investigate it if he wanted to. Well, he came down and talked to all of us, and we ended up inviting him in '72 when the snow had let us. 8,400 feet in the Sierra Nevada mountains a lot of snow in the wintertime. So you can't get in until usually spring or late
Mhm.
April, sometime like that. So that's how it began. We started all taking tape recorders with us and recording everything we could when these things would come around. I say these things because there was more than one, and they would argue. It sounded like they were arguing anyway. Very aggressive sounds we were recording, and as you most people have heard, they are the only sounds that's ever been recorded of these beasts, whatever they are. I believe them to be cognizant, sentient entities now. Now that I've been studying this thing for over 50 years, I've come to those conclusions that what we were dealing with. However, they're not all the same all over the world. I just don't believe that. A
Mhm.
lot of them have been crossbred with indigenous people, become more humanistic.
Mhm.
However, they were hybrids to start with, like we're hybrids. There were so many hybridization programs going on by aliens here that's just. I guess we can talk about aliens, can't we?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, if the government says, and Roswell was really not a weather balloon, right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
pretty sad.
they hold back what they don't think we can handle, and I think the government knows about this, but they don't know how to hide it. More people are seeing it. They don't know what to do. They're just going to let it fly, and now more and more people are getting into the anomalies associated with these things because there are strangeness goes on with them. I think there's a connection with that and UFOs because I think aliens of some type created them by DNA manipulation over
Mhm.
eons and eons of time. They were here long before, I believe, Homo sapiens, us. And so it's kind of interesting when you get into it and start researching it. For me, it has been, and I encourage anybody to because we're all conditioned with our outside brain. Excuse me. Our our brain has been only knows what's been taught, what it wants to believe. So it creates a box around your head, which is called what's sitting on our shoulders. It's called the brain. But that only
Mhm.
controls and works with your body. What's really inside your brain is your etherical part, your pineal gland, your consciousness, your ability to do certain things that we have not evolved into yet. But once we get out of that little box that we got going on up there, and there's a way to do that through the heart's brain. The heart has a brain and it can talk to the upper brain. It's called a gut feeling. When you get that, you need to go by it because that's what's right for you. But your brain has to accept it. And unfortunately, our brain talks us out of it. And that heart is fed by through, I believe, the pineal gland, which is connected into the heart's brain. And the heart, I just think we need to go by the heart's feeling, and that's the gut feeling. And so anyway, that's where I go with it all. But there's a lot more to it, where I reached back all the way into Mesopotamian scriptures by the Sumerians and into the cuneiform texts, and started looking at where all these changes came from that are in our modern Bible and how they got to be what they are. And it's the oldest known written language. But most all religions, and I say religions because religions are man's way of controlling you, as far as I'm concerned. They teach you about hell and what to do and what not to do. And if you do the wrong thing,
Mhm.
there's somebody special up there with a with a herd and sheep who's going to watch everything you do, and he wants you to do certain things, or he's got a real special place for you. which
Mhm.
which if you don't do the things he said, he's going to burn you forever and ever and ever. But he loves you. So
Right.
there's a conflict there. God is love. There's a God is love. That's just the way it is. And that's
I agree.
biblical. That's all through. God is. However, there's a lot of things that the gods, I say gods, are I'm just going to say it, the Anunnaki, which were
Mhm.
here. That's the shiny ones, powerful ones from the sky. That's all in the Mesopotamian tablets, which are the cuneiform texts. They started manipulating DNA out of primates, out of different species on this planet, and creating what they wanted to.
Um, I wanted to, before I forget,
Before
Mr. Moorhead, I wanted to go back to something you had mentioned at the beginning about how there are different Bigfoot type creatures all over the world. So, say, like the Yeti. versus Bigfoot. Do you think that's alien, manipulation for whatever area of the earth they're living in, that they've made those changes or the differences are happening?
Well, I can tell you this: the another DNA study came out of above Bhutan and Nepal, Himalayas, 17,000 feet, uh, geographic sponsored it, and a geneticist went up there with several people, and they took some eDNA out of the snow tracks. And she came out of it. This is 1914, I think it was. 2014,
Mhm.
and did a study on them, and came back and says that the mitochondria was mostly human, and that, along with Melba Ketchum's study saying that it's human, but everybody's, people are saying thumbs down in academic clubs because they said it has to be contaminated if it's got a human component. Well, no, it doesn't have to be. They have a human component. And when you get into my studies, which takes me from Dr. Curlin, electrical engineer, very, very high ranked electrical engineer with a high clearance, even in the military. And he studied them, saying they were outside the human range. We talked about that earlier, but you get Scott Nelson, who says they have a language by the human definition of language. Wow, that's important. He's a two-time graduate of the crypto foreign language studies in Monterey, California, for the military, and he made a career out of that. And he says they have a language by the human definition of language. It means a morphine stream of words like we're talking now, which make
Mhm.
sense. Everything has communication ability. Whales, dolphins, birds, everything communicates, but not with spoken language like we have. When you get into Dr. Philip Lieberman, Brown University, cognitive research scientist, says only humans have the vocal mechanism that can speak language like we're speaking. The hyoid bone connected into the tongues, the nervous system, into the brain. Talking what you're seeing, you can talk about. Only humans have the vocal mechanism for language. Put those three things together, and you got yourself something of the human component. Or we have a Bigfoot component. We were given the same thing that these things were given. However, we've been cut down from those things. We've been limited on purpose so we wouldn't get too cocky, I guess.
Mhm.
But anyway, I just think that, yeah, that's the way it goes. And I got to get that word out because people have to understand what it means to be human and what it means to be who we are. We're very special. I don't think people understand just how special we are because they think, well, mom, dad died, grandma and grandpa died. There are people before them died,
Mhm.
everybody dying. Well, but there's more. Quantum physics says energy, which we're made of, cannot die, just changes form. Religions say we're going to go to heaven. Well, you got Tesla saying what one man calls God, no one calls quantum physics. And then you got Einstein saying what uh, science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind, something like that. And
Mhm.
Einstein said energy and matter is interchangeable. There's so much that smart guys have figured out that I've just looked into. And you put it all together and you put it with the scriptures too, where our Bible has been changed a lot by human conditioning and religion is brought into the fact because religion is, I shouldn't say anything bad about religion. They're not teaching people what's important. What's important is your spirituality, who you are as a human, what you're doing as a human. It's not what the minister says you're going to go to hell if you smoke a cigarette or something like that. You just got to learn from what you're doing, uh, and that's the story, I think. And uh, anybody in charge has changed the narrative. Whoever's the strength of the country, whoever's a prince, whoever's the emperor, whoever's in charge, is going to control the narrative.
Right.
And we have to learn not to believe it all. Just go by your heart's telling you what your heart's telling you, because it will receive from the oneness that we're all part of. It'll receive from that, and it will. If you learn how to put that heart brain into the outside brain and get the coherence going on, so the rhythmically work. That's your balancing part. That's the chakras. That's what's important. And learn how to meditate and listen to that heartbeat. What it's saying to you about so and so, or about, and don't talk bad about it. You can't say something good, don't say anything at all. I heard that in Disneyland 100 years ago. You know, you can't say something good, don't say something at all. That's true.
I agree.
I tell people too, talk how you want things to be, not how you don't want them to be. That's important. What I just said. If we talk about what we want, because sometimes they start talking trash about somebody, and I say, "Well, how do you want them to be? Do you want them to be like that?" No, I'd rather them be like that. I say, "Well, talk about them like that." And your words and your emotions have strength, and you can condition things better if you talk better. So it's important how we talk and how we deal with negativity that's all around us. So anyway,
Thank you.
there.
I want to say thank you very much for saying that because unfortunately, on YouTube, in this corner of YouTube as well, there's some negativity sometimes in exactly what you just talked about. There's, people that will just talk negatively or bash people or just have nothing but just pure, just rudeness and meanness and vindictiveness. And it has no place not only on YouTube, just not in the world at all. It doesn't help anyone do anything. So I want to thank you very much for saying that because that needed to be said.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, you draw into what you think about, what you talk about. If you think about negativity all the time, you're going to have negativity all the time. Think of positivity all the time, you're going to have positive things happen for you. That's the way it works. And I can attest to that because I used to be one of those guys.
Hmm.
I think positive now. You got to. I told the guys when I went out in the woods looking for dogman, you're going to see one. They're all out there. Well, I said, I got to tell you guys something first. I said, you draw into what you think about most. So if you're afraid of these things or you got the fear of them, which they do because they were hurting
Hmm.
people down there,
Yeah.
uh, better be careful because that's what we'll draw into. So when I went out with them, I said, I've told you guys about fear because you got to control your fear. And so then they said, well, okay, we're not afraid now. Okay, well, then we won't see one. You won't see it if you don't draw it into you. Yeah. And we
Right.
didn't,
Right.
all over. But that's okay. I mean, you got to learn that what you're thinking about, what you're talking about, is what you're drawing towards you, and that's what you're going to be made of.
You know what? It's interesting you bring that
That's
up,
how I think.
sir. I had played my EVP for you when I met you for the first time at the conference. I had told you about how I went to Beaver Creek State Park in Columbiana County, Ohio, which is only about 40 minutes from where I live in the Youngstown, Ohio area. And I'm sure you remember the recording I played for you. The and you thought yourself that it sounded, like a Bigfoot, and other people have said it. The point I'm getting at, though, is I went into that situation before I even entered this trail and started going up to this area where I was told a portal is, and they utilize this area. And there's been a lot of Bigfoot sightings and studies done. Dr. Russ Jones has spent a lot of time in Beaver Creek State Park. What I did was I stopped before I entered and I asked, I just said, I want permission to please come in. I mean you no harm. I'm your brother. I just want to have a positive experience. And I said positive things. And I just would like to see you or hear you. And I never saw anything, but I did an EVP before I left. And before I left, it had gotten very quiet. And that kind of signaled that gut instinct. And I went, you know what? I better record something. And I did it. And I got a great EVP of a grunt. And when I asked some questions like how many of you are there was wood knocks, and four of them happened. And none of that was audible on my ears. It was only audible on my phone,
Mm,
which also threw into it that veil that's in front of our eyes, that there's things around us that we can't see, but they're there. And they were definitely there because
right.
you can tell that wasn't my voice that made the grunt. And the wood knocks was definitely not me
Yeah.
either. So that was really incredible. And it was positive because I went in with a positive mindset. affect you personally when you realized that this was something, otherworldly or supernatural going on?
Well, I didn't think it was supernatural. We just thought it was ape in the woods out there that hadn't been identified. Personally, I knew the other guys had not been eaten, carried away in a sleeping bag. Everything was okay. These things had not harmed them. They all had guns, so they could have shot their way out if they'd had to, but they never had to do that because they didn't want to shoot something they didn't know about. They're very, very good guys. I mean, they just don't shoot things because they don't understand it like so many people do. How it affected me, I wasn't that afraid, to be honest with you, just because nothing had happened to anybody yet. And I had a big high powered gun too. And not that that would have helped, but it kind of gives you a little bit of security feeling. At the time it did. So you can't help but be a little concerned because of the really aggressive sounding sounds we were hearing. But we think that they were arguing amongst themselves out there. They weren't arguing about salt and pepper on us. We're going to find the salt and pepper for these guys. We eat them. So I don't know.
Mhm.
That's just what we think. And it wasn't until 74 when I started interacting with them outside the shelter, which was very unusual. In fact, it hadn't happened before like this. And I started mimicking them. And it was uh, quite a night, really, when they started yelling back at me. Again, I'm thinking there's some kind of ape down there trying to talk to me. Didn't know about language, how important it was, or anything like that.
Mhm.
Uh, Now I know, and I would have tried a lot harder to try to decipher what they were saying. A lot of people say, "Well, we know what they're saying." Well, they all say something different. So how do you know who's telling you what's right? I'm trying to find AI now. If you can find any artificial intelligence that can look into this and maybe tell me something that we don't know yet, what they were saying, what they were asking, that's important. I think 'cause once they step out of our dimension, if their age don't age like we do. When they're in our three-dimensional environment, they do age, and they eat, they poop, they're physical beings. They're biological when they're here, but they step out, they change their biological being into energy only, and then they don't age like we won't age once we get out of this body. So was I afraid? It's hard for people to understand how you wouldn't be afraid. Joe Rogan's one of
Mhm.
them. He thinks it's all fake because we'd have been scared to death if we'd been up there. Those sounds going off with 10-foot something out there growling like that. Well, he don't know the story. We felt okay because they hadn't done anything to us yet, and we've been dealing with
Mhm.
this over and over and over for a few years. Then, so anyway, it's become known as the Sierra Sounds, and I never thought it would bring me to what I'm doing today, talking on a podcast like this. COVID brought this
So
on,
let
though,
me ask.
didn't it? A lot of people.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
it's an honor, like I said, but let me ask you this real quick about what Joe Rogan said. So you had one of the best professional linguists on the planet that worked for the US government say that this is physically impossible that that could be a human being. How did he, address that situation if it's fake?
Well, he just didn't want to believe it.
Yeah.
It's that simple. He's got his paradigm made up. Don't change it. Don't change his mind with facts.
Small
It
mind.
wasn't just that. It's the Professor Curlin did the study showing his yes. He's a bright guy, but he needs to get on track with this a little bit. Uh,
Mhm.
and that's all I'm saying. I wish he would because he keeps saying something. He's got a big audience too, and they listen to him. Yet you got Professor Curlin, written over 100 papers. The guy's undeniable. Said represented a clip of it represented an animal over 8 foot tall. And then you got Dr. Denton at West Texas, no, not West Texas, but Texas A&M, and he says that without studying them as full blown like Curlin did, he said it represented an animal 8.5 foot tall compared to the human voice. And you got those two corroborating each other. Professor Curlin mainly. You got Scott Nelson saying they have a language, and you got
Mhm.
Philip Lieberman, who says only humans have that. Well, you know, Joe Rogan needs to stop talking about it if you don't know what he's talking about. He just guesses because he's got his mind made up. I could change his mind, I believe,
I
but he won't
agree.
talk to me anymore. He don't want to. He don't want to have his mind. He's too big now. He's to mess with little guys like me.
Well, he's got a small mind,
So anyway,
in my
yeah, they
opinion.
just recently, he mentioned my sounds again and mentioned me by name, and he just didn't come off that wagon that he's on. He's still
Mhm.
riding the ape thing because he can't believe it. He just don't want to believe it. He says he wants to, but he doesn't, or he'd look into it deeper and try to get the facts.
Right. And again,
I
he,
wish
like
somebody
you
turned
said,
this
he
over to
has.
him so he.
Well, I agree with you. And like you said, he has that, I'm Mr. Big now. I'm the biggest podcaster on the planet. So what I say is going to go. He's got a small mind. And that's a damn shame, in my opinion, that he's not listening to you. I mean, you were there. It's been proven that language, or whatever it is real, not by humans. Um, I wanted to ask you this. I remember you saying on some of the other interviews I've seen and TV shows I've watched about you talk. You said that they've always were able to keep out of the camera's view. Do you think they knew what the cameras were? And did you ever see them physically yourself with your own eyes?
At the time we were setting cameras up, we had no idea that they were sentient beings. We underestimated everything about them at that time. And we set camera traps up and they'd go around the camera trap. Or if they set it off, they bat the camera off. I think we lost 3 cameras up there. What was your other part of that question? Oh, did I ever see?
I
Yes, I seen one in '74 when I recorded the samurai cry. And that's a night Bill saw one too, a different one.
What
So
did it look like?
yeah, he was moving really well. He didn't come up and shake hands with me. He was running past a few yards, several yards away from the camp. It
Mhm.
was so fast. He'd made the samurai cry. He shot down through the trees, a moonlit night, and we sat outside by the stove. And he was going down to what we think was an adolescent and a mother down below. And I got that recorded, by the way, the loud adolescent's voice. And anyway, I just, it was probably 9 foot tall. I don't know, something like that. It's hard to say
Mhm.
because it was like it was floating. It was going so fast. And how any human, I don't think, no human could do what I saw run
Yeah.
down through there like that. Definitely bipedal, definitely just really smooth. And I've said that for years. And since then, I've heard other people talk about how they float, how they can just sort of float.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's just the way they walk. Pardon me.
God
So
bless.
anyway, thank you. It was big, dark, and probably hairy.
There is a video out there of, and
Excuse me.
bless you again. There is a video out there that was made in Russia of a father and a son that were hunting, and they got, and it is my belief of the way that it moves. It is not AI. It's not a guy in a monkey suit. I'll have to send it to you. But basically, they got a recording of. I mean, it's a Sasquatch, and the way it was running and the way that it moved was just absolutely incredible. And I really believe that they got a real video of one. It had ran across a small area of their viewing on the camera. They had heard something and started recording, and that it had turned and it grabbed a tree and it jumped up and then down into a lower part and then turned and taken off. And it was also fluid and, like you said, almost floating. And the speed was just inhuman and incredible. And again, I'll send you that video. It's really incredible. I'd like your view on that. I'll put that on here as well.
Thank you.
Um, I wanted to ask, did you think you had mentioned you heard them arguing? Was that the female and the male that everyone has heard on the video? Do you think that is when they were arguing, so to speak, about you guys?
Yes, that's what the linguist said. A different linguist who's listened to them. She is a court-certified interpreter for several languages in the state of California. Only one of 10 that existed at the time. She's gone. Well, she's not around anymore. Let's put it that way. But she's very, very qualified. And she listened to it. And she said it was a male and a female, and they were arguing over something. She didn't know what. I think it might have been the food we left out. But anyway, she said the female won. I just got to say that part because we have a choice of being married people. We can either win or we can be happy.
Happy
So
wife, happy life.
I choose to be happy.
Me too. Mr. Morehead, I wanted to thank you very much for being here. This has been an absolute honor. Um, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming and doing this for me and for my followers of my channel. It's something that I have been super excited about for a long time, and I can't wait to see you again in person, sir.
Thank you for having me on, Matt, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, sir. And I'm sure we'll run into each other at a conference, and I can't wait to see you again. And for me and for all of my
Yeah.
followers of the channel, we just wanted to thank you. Everybody, please go to ronmorehead.com and get Mr. Morehead's book. It is, I'm sure, absolutely incredible. I'm going to get myself one. And again, sir, thank you. It's been an honor.
Rain for Nightville. He's trying to talk to this. Somebody actually. Like a wacky. That's our deal. We know where we can look for tracks of life for sure. across the creek at the big rocks. It's a hard act to follow.
It sounds like he talks to us and they talk to each other.
Yeah. Right there, just seen movement right through there.
Come on. You're not very sociable tonight. Now, come on down. Okay, I'll go back in. Come on now.